I've historically never been much of an anime fan. I mean, I've seen and enjoyed plenty, but the only one that I ever truly fell in love with was Death Note. That is, until I started dating my girlfriend, and she began introducing me to anime that I'd never even heard of. I really began to enjoy them, and now I can officially say that I'm even more of a geek than I was before. One of the anime she introduced me to was a sweet-looking one about ghost hunters from 2000, produced by the same studio who did Bleach and Naruto, an anime titled Ghost Stories. So, upon first viewing, episode 1 began pretty much as expected, with Pokemon-esque upbeat music, an introduction to our young protagonist Satsuki, and her younger brother Ketchiro. They move into a new town and pass by the local school that they'll be attending, which is the primary setting of the show, on their way to their new home. It's at this new home, approximately 4 minutes into episode 1, where we get the first hint that this dub isn't exactly the family-friendly show that I had thought it was.
Put that in the back room.
You got it.
The rest of them will be all right. The movers will take care of it. Don't worry.
Why you want to live in your dead wife's old house is beyond me. It's sick. You're sick.
Wow, Dad! Grandma's place is so big. Can we go upstairs?
Sure,
Yeah.
but don't bother them.
When this bitch kicks, I'm moving to Vegas.
After this, the episode devolves further and further into madness and edgy humor, constantly pushing what they can get away with more and more the longer it goes on. And that pushing continues as the series goes on, progressively getting more intense and consistent with the raunchy side of the show's humor. For example, here's the edgiest joke in episode 1 compared with just a random joke from episode 9.
Principals always look like lesbians. Pardon me? I really enjoyed running with you today. Don't you have any money for shoes? Did the Crips beat you up and take yours too? They took mine and now my dad only buys me cheap ones from Payless.
So, how exactly did this happen? As I mentioned earlier, I was under the impression that this was a kids show, as were most audiences at the time of airing in 2000. As it turns out, it was a kids show, at least originally. To fully understand how Ghost Stories came to be what it is today, we must first take a look back at the entire history of Ghost Stories as a brand. The story begins in the mid-80s, when Japanese schoolteacher Toru Tsunemitsu overhears some of his students telling tall tales and ghost stories surrounding the goings-on at the school that they attended. Feeling inspired, he asked his students to write down some of their favorite school ghost stories before compiling them into a book called, forgive my butchered pronunciation, Gakko no Kaidan, which translates directly to school ghost stories. Not exactly the most clever name, but regardless, the book became a hit, earning the title of bestseller and spawning 10 sequels, cementing its place in Japanese fiction. In addition to the books, the stories inspired all kinds of other media translations, including movies released in 1995 and 1996 and 1997 and 1999 and possibly one in 2000, but I couldn't find much information on that one. Inevitably, the series would go on to be translated into arguably one of Japan's most popular exports, its very own anime. As mentioned earlier, the anime was headed by some pretty competent people at a studio that had more than proved itself. However, the show kinda bombed. It followed the aforementioned Satsuki and her friend group made up of her little brother, love interest, geeky best friend, and a psychic girl. Every episode, they'd explore an abandoned schoolhouse, use the main character's deceased mother's ghost guidebook to exorcise the demon of the week, then rinse and repeat for about 20 episodes. This formulaic structure didn't really land well with audiences in Japan, and despite the initial hype due to the brand's popularity, it quickly died down, garnering mid-at-best reviews from those who watched it, and being dropped by the studio after just one season. However, anime in the Western world began booming. Every television studio was buying up the rights to these Japanese animated properties in hopes of being the next Pokemon or Dragon Ball. One of these studios was ADV, a multimedia entertainment company located in Houston. All this company did were dubs, and they garnered plenty of success through these, especially on the ones that didn't necessarily perform well in Japan. The idea being that if they bought the rights to less popular anime in the East, they could make them popular in the West without blowing their entire budget on one big name. Generally, when ADV gained the rights to an anime, they were contractually obligated not to change things much at all. However, that was not the case with Ghost Stories. So long as ADV kept the same basic plot and characters, they were essentially free to do whatever they wanted, making their business concept of popularizing things in the West much easier since they had no restrictions. Now, you may think that they'd take this opportunity to try to change up elements that were heavily criticized by viewers and critics when the show aired in Japan. And you'd be completely wrong. Instead, they took a completely different approach, utilizing shock humor to keep viewers invested in an otherwise boring show.
I told you I'm going to be fine. Why are you still crying? Because these pajamas are gay.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to take back that Harvard offer.
It's my mom's.
Well, that explains your painfully unattractive looks and your lackluster scholastic performance. And your unfortunate brother.
Bitch!
Look at what I was wearing. Oh, horrible. I mean, even after I married your father, I still dress like a dyke. Hope I didn't put that pink suit picture in here. Oh, god damn it.
To achieve this, the studio brought in a controversial figure in the anime community, Stephen Foster. Stephen was known for his goofy sense of humor and inaccurate dubs. He'd regularly let his actors just say or do whatever they felt was right, instead of strictly sticking to the source material, which caused some people to completely dislike him.
Fucking stop, for the love of God. Put the sinking back. That would do so much for a dub. Jesus. And now my mother's calling, so I will talk to you guys later. Life's a game, play to win. Peace.
But for those exact reasons, ADV knew that he was exactly the person for the job. So, with no regulation, Stephen Foster and the Ghost Stories team got to work creating the dub. During this process, the biggest changes made were to the characters' personalities. The love interest became a sort of Quagmire-esque pervert. The little brother became a whiny caricature of the typical youngest sibling. The geeky best friend was turned into a bit of a Jewish stereotype. And the psychic became a former, shall we say, eccentric woman.
Before I met Jesus, I was really f***ed up. No, and a slut.
Turned Jesus freak who regularly tried to convert all of the characters to her belief system and constantly reminds them that if killed by a ghost, she'd be the only one of them going to heaven. Thanks to the off-the-wall dialogue and a ton of improvisation, Ghost Stories became a huge hit in the West, and is still highly regarded as one of the best dubs and funniest anime of all time. Stephen Foster regards this as a sort of magnum opus of his. You can read about it in his book if you're interested. And the series lives on in the mainstream due to clips of it seemingly randomly blowing up online every few months. You've probably seen at least one of these before.
When he died, I was so sad that I would never hear that voice again. His laugh. His funny little requests.
Touch me.
His reprimands.
Touch me harder.
Shirotabi, please forgive me for bringing you back to life. I know now that it could never work between us. As much as we wanted to, it could never be. Not because you're a rabbit, but because you're black.
There's nothing to be afraid of, Kichu. Monsters only get evil people like Republicans, and we're not old enough to vote.
In conclusion, a series like Ghost Stories is an enigma in the modern day. It's unlikely we'll ever see something like this again, as most studios have increased policies on remaining PC to stay in the good graces of the public, meaning they wouldn't touch something like Ghost Stories with a 10-foot pole. Though, in my personal opinion, the series did a great job at poking fun at everyone, even themselves from time to time. And in a weird way, Ghost Stories is a great demonstration of how something can be so offensive that it's just not anymore. It shows a clear lack of malicious intent due to its ability to make jokes at the expense of all kinds of people. Some of the jokes may still be a little far for me personally to find funny, but I would still recommend the anime to anyone who asked because it always maintains a feeling of lightheartedness. With all that said, this has been a short history of ghost stories. I've been Kobe Films, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Hello, and welcome back to yet another handheld end card. So first of all, I uploaded the Five Nights at Freddy's video like 2 days ago, I think, and wow, I have been completely blown away on the response to that. It's sitting at like 2.5 thousand views, which I don't know. I mean, you know, I've been doing YouTube kind of on and off since 2018, I think. And I could not dream of the kind of reception that I'm getting now. I mean, it really just means the world to me. So genuinely from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys, everyone who watched that video, everyone who subscribed from that video, thank you. Beyond that, you'll see below me, I have a few videos coming out pretty soon. Since this one is pretty short, I think the Batman one that I've also kind of showing off down there is going to be pretty short. So get used to some of these shorter video essays before I go into the longer ones like the Five Nights at Freddy's one again, just because that took me a long time. That said, tomorrow I'm going to see the Five Nights at Freddy's movie, meaning I'm going to record the vlog portions of the review. So I'm really, really excited to do that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to go out with friends and see the movie, and I also just want to share my thoughts on movies here because, I mean, like I mentioned in the last end card, I'm a film major, so talking about movies is kind of my favorite thing to do ever. So anyway, yeah, so I don't know when this video is going to come out, but I believe the current release order is probably like this, then Lost, the short film, and then the FNAF review. And those are all probably going to be coming out relatively back to back just because of how quickly I'm producing content now. So yeah, just to recap, thank you all so much for watching. Those are the videos that are going to be coming out soon. Tomorrow I'm going to record one of those videos, and thank you all so much for your reception on the Five Nights at Freddy's video. I haven't been able to stop smiling for like 2 days. But as always, please remember, believe to achieve. Bye-bye.